Liberal Prime Minister Justin Trudeau feigned ignorance late last year when he received massive backlash over the standing ovation former Nazi SS soldier Yaroslav Hunka received in the House of Commons. But we now know through our exclusive investigation that that invite came directly from him, and even Liberals are starting to speak out and denounce the repeatedly scandalous conduct of this government.
Obviously, it's extremely upsetting that this happened. The speaker has acknowledged his mistake and has apologized. But this is something that is deeply embarrassing to the Parliament of Canada and, by extension, to all Canadians. I think particularly of Jewish MPs and all members of the Jewish community across the country who are commemorating Yom Kippur today. I think it's going to be really important that all of us push back against Russian propaganda, Russian disinformation, and continue our steadfast and unequivocal support for Ukraine.
Tamara Ugolini here with Rebel News to bring you a telling update about the situation in Canada and the Liberal government, wherein ties with Ukraine, Nazi soldiers, and the Prime Minister's role in all of it are coming to light. You see, it was through our exclusive investigation and through your generosity at rebelinvestigates.com that we were able to bring you this breaking news story a week ago that has since been picked up by the mainstream media, like the Globe and Mail, who sadly didn't source or credit us at all for this investigation. Although credit where it is due, the CBC did in fact credit us as having broke the story through our access to information investigation. So thank you for that. But back on September 22nd, 2023, 98-year-old Yaroslav Hunka was honored as a hero for fighting Russians during World War II, which, as history would have it, means that he fought as a Nazi soldier. The former Nazi soldier was cheered with a standing ovation during Ukrainian President Zelenskyy's visit to the Canadian Parliament that was happening at the same time.
We have here in the chamber today Ukrainian Canadian world veteran from the Second World War who fought the Ukrainian independence against the Russians and continues to support the troops today, even at his age of 98.
This disaster saw House Speaker Anthony Rota as Trudeau's fall guy. He apologized and resigned amid the controversy as Trudeau feigned ignorance and blamed Rota for it all.
I must step down as your speaker. I reiterate my profound regret for my error in recognizing an individual in the House during the joint address to Parliament of President Zelenskyy. That public recognition has caused pain to individuals and communities, including the Jewish community in Canada and around the world, in addition to survivors of Nazi atrocities in Poland, among other nations. I accept full responsibility for my actions.
But I'll share with you the actual invitation, which came from the Prime Minister directly, sent to Hunka on September 19th, 2023. It reads, "Dear Yaroslav Hunka, the Right Honourable Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada, is pleased to invite you to a special event. The event will take place on Friday, September 22nd, 2023 at 8:30 p.m. in Toronto, Ontario. Please confirm your attendance by replying to this email by noon on Wednesday, September 20th, 2023. Once we receive confirmation of your attendance, the formal invitation will be issued, including detailed information regarding registration and access." Now, according to the PMO, Hunka did not attend this event, which was a reception with Zelenskyy and his wife. It is telling that he was honored in Parliament earlier that same day. Now, not only did the Prime Minister's office know of Hunka's attendance, but they invited him to a separate event on the very same day. And to add insult to injury, Hunka's family even took photos. They went to social media and posted them, a photo of Hunka waiting in the reception hall for Trudeau and Zelenskyy. Rota was also seen holding hands with Hunka in at least one photo. Now, Liberal organizer Jake Landau broke the ranks and shared his reaction on CBC earlier this week.
we applauded a Nazi in Parliament. And let's also talk about the lie of omission that the Prime Minister's office did. Months ago, when this event happened, the Prime Minister's office said, when the photo came out of Yaroslav Hunka waiting in that room on Parliament Hill, and they said he was going to have a meeting with Trudeau, the Prime Minister's office said that they had never invited him to meet with the Prime Minister on Parliament Hill. What they did not say was that they had invited him to an event in Toronto the same day with Zelenskyy as well. So it was a clear lie of omission, because it's like, oh, we didn't invite him to meet us in Ottawa, but you did in Toronto, and you hid that, and then it came out in a Freedom of Information Act request, which it shouldn't have. You should have just apologized at the start rather than hiding things, and now it looks even worse.
He falls short of giving us credit for that access to information request and the breaking news story, but goes on to push for accountability over this scandal.
Someone in the office was responsible for inviting him. He wasn't invited by magic pixie dust. They're actually, you can't simply say mistakes were made and then nobody takes responsibility for the mistakes. The mistakes were clearly made by a human being with agency and the ability to make choices. And also, in terms of other consequences, even before this revelation, when we're talking about the report from the 90s where we talked about the names of all of these people who were admitted, who we knew were former SS members, that's still redacted, and the Trudeau government has made no effort to uncover those names. And I think, as a Jew and as a Liberal in Canada, and even if I wasn't either of those things, I think it's pretty fair to say I want to know who came here that might have helped murder members of my family.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, the Conservative leader went after the Prime Minister today on this. What did you make of the Prime Minister's remarks? And you know, he basically, you know, turned this a little bit, took some responsibility, but turned this a little bit to the Ukrainian Canadian Congress, who, as I said in the intro there, we've not gotten a comment from them just yet.
Well, the great thing is we can blame them too. Like, just because the Ukrainian Canadian Congress did something bad by suggesting him, and they absolutely should have known better, considering he was well known to them. He's a known public figure in the Ukrainian community. Like, his history should have been clear. So we can certainly blame them for suggesting him, but the Ukrainian Canadian Congress didn't hold a gun to the Prime Minister's office's head and say, you have to invite this person or else. Like, just because one person did a bad thing doesn't mean the other people involved didn't also do bad things. Right. If you hire someone to work for the Prime Minister of Canada and they act in the name of the Prime Minister of Canada, there has to be a higher standard of conduct. There has to be a higher standard of how you act in the name of the leader of our country. Like, if we don't hold ourselves to a standard on that front, then we kind of lose any semblance of dignity we might have left in our government.
And Russian President Putin recently used this embarrassment as a talking point in his interview with Tucker Carlson last night. Look at this.
The president of Ukraine visited Canada. The story is well known, but being silenced in the Western countries. The Canadian Parliament introduced a man who, as the Speaker of the Parliament said, fought against the Russians during the World War II. Well, who fought against the Russians during the World War II? Hitler and his accomplices. It turned out that this man served in the SS troops. He personally killed Russians, Poles, and Jews. The SS troops consisted of Ukrainian nationalists who did this dirty work. The president of Ukraine stood up with the entire Parliament of Canada and applauded this man. How can this be imagined? You say Hitler has been dead for so many years, 80 years. But his example lives on. People who exterminated Jews, Russians, and Poles are alive. And the president, the current president of today's Ukraine, applauds him in the Canadian Parliament, gives a standing ovation. Can we say that we have completely uprooted this ideology if what we see is happening today?
I think it's fair to say at this point that dignity in this government went out the window a long time ago. And one would think that this would hopefully be the nail in the coffin after repeated scandalous and unethical conduct by the Justin Trudeau Liberals. But thanks to the fringe minority coalition between them and the NDP, the clown show continues. For Rebel News, I'm Tamara Ugolini. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is arguably the worst and most corrupt Prime Minister in Canadian history. If you agree that his failed leadership needs to go, then please sign our petition at TrudeauMustResign.com. It's clear that Canadians can no longer afford the Liberal NDP coalition, and we shouldn't have to undemocratically tolerate their callous disregard for dignity, ethics, or fiscal responsibility. Sign our petition and support our work at TrudeauMustResign.com.